Hi, it's Rebecca Jones, and while I should be writing a blog post, it's actually much faster for me to talk about what I learned this week in Forrester predictions for 2021. Many of you may follow Gartner, Forrester, McKinsey, etc. I am so intrigued by these predictions and also the measures and the reports and the research that come out from these organizations. They have the power and the money to do the right research. And I look at them from the library perspective. So for both academic, public, certainly, to think about what do these predictions mean, or what does this research really mean for libraries, for communities, for campuses. So I just want to share some of the things. You may have gotten other things out of it. I encourage you to have a look at Forrester on the web. We're all librarians, you can look it up. I just wanted to share some of the things that I think are really interesting that we need to pay attention to. There were actually, I think, 6 sections that they shared, but I really want to talk about the customer experience, CX, the CIO and technology predictions that they have, because I think that those are really relevant for us. And then those from the leadership position that were really, they were from the CEO of Forrester, who actually started Forrester. Oh my, don't you wish that we could start something like that? Okay, so here we go. So the very first thing, of course, is customer experience, or CX, as they talk about it. I don't know about you. Obviously, I've been living under a rock because I hadn't thought about CX. I'm still in the UX. But anyway, they talked about CX, and they talked about CX competencies that organizations need. And they really looked at how you have those customers that are so loyal to you. So those students, those faculty, those patrons, those members. Geez, I hope in public libraries we start to talk about them as members and residents. But anyway, that are devoted to you. So that they actually refer to them in their research as devotees. And because it's devotees, now of course they're looking at it from a revenue perspective, but you know what? Our revenue is getting the funding that we need, either from the provost or the college senior management, or from the public libraries, from funders, certainly council, the cities and the municipalities and regions that fund us. So they looked at, this is my drawing. They don't put their graphics up. Yes, Forrester, this is yours. So I just took it, and you know, I'm not great at this, but anyway, it gets the message across, which says that, of course, at the heart of anything is the actual vision for what you envision as the customer experience that you really want those people that are most loyal to you, they're absolutely devoted to you, to be experiencing. Seemed kind of obvious, doesn't it? But then when I looked at what the aspects are that they look at this, and as they say, strategy is not ad hoc repairs. There you go. If you get nothing else out of listening to me for 6 minutes, that's it. Strategy is not an ad hoc repair. Strategy is understanding very clearly what you want to be in place. And they determine their vision based on their research. Of course, we have to do research. We have to start investing in research. And we have to set priorities. See this? See this right here? Setting priorities for, this is our vision. How do we set the priorities to really get there? By designing everything that goes into that customer experience. From the time they interact with us on the web first, doing digital first. So we have to start to do our strategies that are not ad hoc. Strategizing from digital first, and really the phygital strategy, which is the integration, total integration of physical and digital experiences for people. Enable not only our organization to deliver this customer experience, but make sure that the customers are enabled to enjoy it, to actually be able to do it. And then, of course, measuring. Now, I am just in the midst of putting together another workshop for Research Institute for Public Libraries, their data boot camp. And I mean, I'm really honored that I get asked to do this. The measures that we need to have in place. But see what Forrester put all around this is the culture of the organization. So the culture of the organization actually has to live and breathe this customer experience vision, understanding what the research is that goes behind it, understanding the priorities, etc. I mean, you can stop the video now. This is huge for us in libraries to start to come to grips with. The other thing is, as Forrester said, the companies that are really that are doing this right now, that are certainly going to be exceeding at this in 2021, started it, are you ready? 2 to 5 years ago. Now, as they said, it's not too late. Sometimes I wonder, but it does take 2 to 5 years to be able to do this. This is not something that you're going to turn around in a day. Okay. So the next section is, they talked about the CIO, meaning the Chief Information Officer, but I actually took it as both the CIO and technology. The big thing that I took notice of here is, ready for this? 20% of companies will not survive intact in 2021 because of the economic challenges and customer expectations. And they put up a slide of all the organizations that you would immediately notice, from Hertz to JCPenney to, of course it's American, but we can do the same thing in Canada, of those organizations that did not survive through 2020 or are not surviving intact because they're in bankruptcy protection. And so yes, those are the for-profit or liked to profit, hoped to profit, no longer. Is it any different for the non-profits? So when I think about the economic challenges, certainly we know that the municipalities and the cities are really cash starved. We are not through the pandemic yet, and we really have to be looking at what's going to be happening there. So for those organizations that do survive, what they're predicting is that a third of those enterprises, a third of those organizations will totally blend their business and technology strategies and their business and technology leadership. Now that's interesting for us to sort of wrap our heads around. So when I think about business, of course, that is the business of being a library, but also the technology that we've always looked at as, the enabler, the infrastructure underpinning what we do, not as a totally integrated part. We can talk about that. I'm easily influenced on that. But they looked at 3 aspects there, and I didn't do a drawing about that. It's pretty simple. But the 3 aspects that they look at in terms of those organizations that are going to be most successful at this are that the organization has to be adaptive, resilient, and creative, but with slightly different definitions that I think are very insightful. Adaptive, meaning that the organizations can move the people and the resources to where they are needed very quickly. And when we think about it, the biggest part, certainly for public libraries, of the budget, of the resources, is of course people. The biggest part for academic, for higher ed libraries, is usually the content, whether it's databases, whether it's physical content, the stuff that we buy. But think about how long it takes us to really reorganize our budgets and where we are concentrating those resources, those biggest part of our budgets. The resiliency, Yes, I think we're incredibly resilient, and I think we've got that down in spades. But the creative was interesting because the way that they define it is the creativity, meaning bringing the emotion to digital customer experiences. So again, back to the customer experiences we just talked about, but bringing the emotion to it. And they're talking about that because technology, of course, is becoming cheaper and cheaper all the time and much more ubiquitous. And that's what we have to really start to come to grips with. The technology platforms are absolutely critical to making the organization work and to survive in 2021 and throughout, and to getting as close as possible to both the customers, okay, the patrons, the members, the students, the faculty, and the staff. So we have to look at how do we get our staff totally integrated with the technology. And we can talk about that in another one. But looking at that, I thought that was really interesting. The emotion and the moving of the technology to be totally with the customers and staff. Last but not least, if you're still here with me, or if you just went totally to this section, is from the CEO's perspective. So from the senior leadership's perspective. Here's some interesting things. So they talked about the fact that, so marketing. Think about marketing and what marketing drives in our communities and our campuses. So marketing from the end of 2019 to the beginning of 2020, so the end of 2021, they say that the US marketing, as we know it, will shrink by 39%. Now, why do they say that? They say, and these figures are really important for us, 50% of the people, so once the pandemic is manageable, is under control, once we have, you know, the vaccines out, etc., which is going to take a big part of 2021, 50% of people will still avoid crowds. 50%. I know the public libraries and the higher eds that I've been working with, you know, that is one of the unknowns. Will people return? Well, I don't know. 50% apparently, according to Forrester, and they're the ones with the research bucks. 43% will spend less time in physical places, in physical stores, in physical buildings that we are accustomed to. And 45% will spend more time at home. Now, you can say to me, well, Rebecca, that means 55% will still be out there. And what's the other perspective here is 67% will be out. But 43% and 45% will spend more time at home and away from physical buildings. I think that's worth thinking about. Which means that for these organizations, for the CEOs and the leadership teams, they need to be reinventing the supply chain. And they actually looked at a company, which I have to find, who has scaled their curbside pickup. So looking at how the supply chain, we need to look at our supply chain. How are we actually doing this? Are we looking at what they're doing in the for-profit and copying it? I know some of you are fabulous at your curbside, but we really need to look at how we are scaling that. And are we doing it with other organizations? Anyway, then the other thing that CEOs and senior management teams need to look at is that Q1 and Q2 is going to be all around, of 2021, is going to be all around recovery. Maybe into Q3 for us in Canada. But it's only at the end of Q3 and Q4 that people are going to be out there again, buying, experiencing, but the digital experience is still going to be the biggest thing. Be digital or die was the message here. And that being digital is going to lead to people continuing to work from wherever they are. So virtual work, digital work, and that means that's going to lead to public policy changes, which is then going to lead to organizational policy changes. That's everything from making sure that the people who are working from their home or from wherever have the same type of ergonomic experience and accessibility experience that organizations, libraries spend thousands of dollars on, that people need to have that from home. And in fact, the technology from home, not just the computers, but the internet connectivity that organizations will have to look at, and that will start with public policy. I don't know, based on our research, I would have thought it would have started with organization policy and pushing that to the public policy. But that's certainly worth us looking into in another Nextra chat. And if you aren't digital now, then you need to be, because as a senior manager, looking at the benefit that senior managers have, that they can connect with anybody in their organization anytime. That doesn't mean that this CEO that was talking doesn't want to usurp or step on any of their managers' toes, but that they can do so many things within a day that they couldn't before because of the travel. And so I just think that those are really interesting. What they mean for libraries, I think is pretty significant. Talk to you soon. Bye.